Hello, and thanks for joining me on this overlook of Gutenberg. If you're unfamiliar, Gutenberg is the new editor that's coming to WordPress. Chances are a good number of you are already using WordPress to manage content on your sites. Now, if you're familiar with the page builder, such as Beaver Builder, Visual Composer, Elementor, Divi, there's quite a few out there. If you're familiar with the concept of a page builder, then you'll be familiar with something like what Gutenberg does. However, the important thing about Gutenberg is this is going to be a part of WordPress itself, meaning it's not going to be some separate thing that you have to worry about setting up, and it's going to be able to control all of the content that comes into the content editor. The intent is also for Gutenberg to take over other sections of the site in the future, but for now it's just focused on the content editor, when you're making new posts and new pages. So before we get into it, I just want to let you know that, hi, my name is David Wolfpaw. I used to be called David Laeta, if you are familiar with me from the WordPress group. Fun story about that, if you have any interests later. I develop WordPress sites, and I mainly spend my time writing plugins and themes for WordPress. And I also manage a support service that you can find at fixupbox.com. I do backups, maintenance, security, and all the like. But I'm not really here to sell myself. If I'm going to sell you on anything, sell you on the WordPress Orlando Meetup. You can find us on meetup.com. And we have a few meetups coming up that you might be interested in. Next Tuesday evening, we're going to be holding a WordPress Q&A session. Those usually end up running over time just because we get so many questions at the meetup. The idea is that several people who are skilled in marketing and design and development, security, the like, we're going to get up and form a panel and then take questions from the audience so that, if you have a specific question, others can learn from it as well. On the 28th of May, that's a Memorial Day, but that also happens to be the day after WordPress turns 15 years old. So we're going to be holding a 15th anniversary party at the Geek Easy in Winter Park. The information for all these events is on Meetup currently. And we're just going to be having a little get-together, just fun social event. And then finally, the first Monday of every month, we host a coffee and WordPress chat at Austin Coffee in Winter Park. So the next one is going to be on June 4th. That's a Monday morning from 8:30 to 11. And I'll be at all of those. So if you have any questions about this or want to learn anything else, come find us there. Now, to talk about Gutenberg, the best way for me to do that is to just show you how it works. So we're going to get out of this presentation for a little bit and go take a look at a website. So the first thing that I want to point out is that right now you can use Gutenberg on a WordPress site if you so choose. You just need to install the Gutenberg plugin to make it work. So you can find this plugin at the wordpress.org repository. I'll give links at the end of this presentation, and they'll be available for you later. But if you want to give Gutenberg a try, you can just install it just like you would in any other plugin. Now, I would note, don't do this on a live site that is very important, like if it's your main blog or your business site or something. The reason I say that is it is still under active development. So even though the team is up to version 2.8 now, and there's a lot of great work being done, and it's been worked on for a few years now, there is always a chance that new features can cause unexpected things to happen, and some things that you might expect to be there might not be there yet. That said, I've been running my personal blog and my business site on Gutenberg for a few months now, and they've both performed rather well. So we have Gutenberg installed, and we also need some way to display that content. Now, it's usually going to be fine to use any theme that you want to use to play with Gutenberg. The idea is that only the content that's in the content editor, that is the area when you're editing a post, that's the big white text box that you put all your info in, that's the area that will be affected by Gutenberg. That said, there are a few minor things that change with Gutenberg that might want to make themes update. Closer to the end of this presentation, I'll give you an idea of how that might look for a developer, but the whole point of that idea is that right now it's actually really easy to make a theme ready for Gutenberg. Chances are whatever theme you're using will already work. That said, I have created a mobile-first Gutenberg-ready theme. It's the one that I'm using on my personal website now. I'm still actively developing it, still adding new features and new styling. But this theme is intended just for a general-purpose blog. Nothing really special there. Sidebar, header. I chose to do a few things that would make it friendly for someone who's familiar with like Medium or Pocket or Instapaper, one of those services for reading, just because, when I'm reading, I like to have things get out of my way. So that also means things like making the headers hide when you scroll up, and making the menus hide when you scroll up. I also added a night mode to it. There's the sticky menus, and then a few other things like displaying reading time, article progress, author information, a bunch of font pairings so that you don't have to worry about choosing the right fonts, because I'm not super great at that myself. But anyway, again, links will be here at the end. You don't need to use this, just if you want to try something that already is set up for Gutenberg with all the newest features, this is available. But let's take a look at what Gutenberg looks like. So first of all, I have this new WordPress site that I've set up. Again, I have Gutenberg installed on the site, and I don't have any posts yet. Now you'll note when you have Gutenberg installed, besides having this extra little tab over here, which right now that's just there to allow you to leave feedback, see some documentation about it, and to try demo. We're going to be looking at the demo in a moment, but note that you can look at the add new, and now there's a drop down, and the suggestion is to either add with Gutenberg or use the classic editor. So I'm going to open up the classic editor just so we can see it, but I'm also going to note that if you click add new, it's going to go directly to Gutenberg. So first of all, this is what you're already used to. You have a title, your content area, categories, tags, your images, and then any other metadata that might appear with a post on your site. So chances are you already know what this looks like. Now, what you are going to be using in the future is going to look a little bit different, but it's still going to have all those same features and more. So this is what the Gutenberg editor looks like. It's all in one area now. You notice when you hover over the title and content area have some information that pops up with them. You still have that side information, but instead of being different blocks, they are in little drop downs. And then you have some other things that you can do. So I'm going to start with their demo. That way we can take a look at a lot of Gutenberg features together. It's a nice way for you to just install it on your site and see what it looks like first. So this is a demo of the Gutenberg editor, along with a lot of the different content types that are in there. So the first thing you're going to want to know is that there's a bit of a terminology change here. Gutenberg refers to individual pieces of content. That is your images, your paragraphs, your list, galleries, videos. It refers to all of those that appear on a page as blocks. So when you're editing something, you're going to be talking about editing a block. Now I'm clicking on the very first block on this page that says of mountains and printing presses, and you notice when I click on it, a few options come up. I can change the text that's in this image, make it italic, make it say something else, make it bold, and I can also change things with this image. Now you see when I have this clicked here, I have a few different options available at the top of that image. So I can change the positioning of this, I can change the alignment of text in there, and then I can also change if it's going to be a different block. You'll also notice that on the right sidebar, there's this new tab called Block, and it gives you some information about the type of block. This is a cover image. And then it also gives you information about what you can do with that block, different settings. So in this case, I have the ability with the cover block to choose whether it's a fixed background or not. So if I toggle that on, let's take a look. And you see now, instead of moving with the page, that background image of those mountains stay where they are. And then I can also control the background dimness. So let's say that this image, wasn't quite as dark as this, but I still want to use that white text. I can change how dark the background is. And you can see that I can make these design changes without having to edit any CSS, without having to go to a completely separate panel, and I can quickly see what they look like on my site. I can make it really dark where you can barely see the background, or I can make it so light that it might be difficult to see that text. So for now, I'm just gonna set it back to halfway. We can also take a look. All of them will have different additional advanced features. In this case, you can just add your own CSS classes, so if you know how to use that for styling. And then I also want to point out that there are these new alignments that can be done with Gutenberg. So you might already be familiar with aligning content to the left, centering it, or aligning it to the right. That way you can say align it to the left and have some text below flow next to the image. The two new alignments that you have are wide width and full width. So the idea of this is that the wide width, I'm going to scroll down a bit, you'll notice that it is wider than the content around it. If I just set it to centered, it would try to stay the same size or smaller, depending on how big the image is, with the content above and below it. This wide width will have some, give us a bit of a visual flair, basically. We can just have something that stands out a bit more. Again, if you're familiar with Medium or Subtle or a lot of other different blogging platforms now, Squarespace has this as well, you'll notice that some of these features are things that exist elsewhere, and WordPress is now implementing them for your use. And then another one that I think is really cool, and I'm really glad it's here, is the full width. So you notice a lot of sites have this ability to put a full width image and full width menus and footers. Now you can do that directly while you're editing your content. So I can say that this cover background is going to have a fixed background, and it's going to be full width. So let's take a look at another. We have paragraphs, just general content, but instead of typing all of your paragraphs into one place, you're now going to be typing paragraphs into separate blocks. Now don't worry, you're not going to have to create a new block every time you start typing. Notice that I'm at the end of this paragraph here, and I click enter, and now I'm in a new block. And if I start typing, it will assume that this is a paragraph. If I can type. Now you have a few features that are available for paragraphs. You have the ability to change this text size. So again, you can do some design work without having to use any CSS, and you get to see exactly what it'll look like right while you're editing it. So I can make this text a lot smaller, or I can make it super large. And then you can always reset it to whatever the standard should be. You can also set a custom size if you know exactly how large you want to make your text. You can add a drop cap directly from paragraph now. So the drop cap is the first letter of the paragraph being larger. Again, this is just a design element that will let you have some visual change so that you can, have something to draw the eye. And with paragraphs and most other blocks now, you can also set colors for the background, text, and again, do that same alignment. So here's something that's really cool that Gutenberg adds. It's starting to give you some suggestions on how you can do things. I'm going to show you one of the suggestions that relates to SEO shortly, but here's the suggestion that relates to accessibility. So I have a very dark text here. It's not black, but it's pretty close to black here, and right now it's on a white background. But let's say I change that background to that dark gray color because I want this paragraph to be, stand out a bit different. Or I'll just say I'm going to set it to a dark blue. So again, you can see the text, but it's going to be a lot harder to see. So I'm going to click this, and you'll notice that it changes in my editor, but you'll also see this little notification that comes up. This color combination may be hard for people to read. Try using a darker background color and or brighter text color. So it's telling me that this does not pass WCAG 2 compliant standards for accessible text. Basically, it's a contrast test, and it can tell that there's not great contrast here. Now, if I go in and change this text color, let's say I change the text to white, that notification goes away because now there is enough contrast for you to read this. So that's great. Now I can know if something is going to have enough contrast to match any sort of visual impairment someone might have. Well, not any sort, but I mean, it's a start. So let's take a look at a few more. You can see that you can still do all the same things like bold and italicize text, do your strike throughs, make it a link to something else, choose what happens with that link. And you can also do things like change the alignment of the text. You can create headings. So you can see that right now I have this set to a heading, and I can choose what heading type it is, a heading 2, heading 3, or heading 4. These are the 3 that this has set up by default, and you can change to other ones, but it's choosing the ones that are most common. And you might ask, why is there no heading 1 available in the main editor here? Well, that's because your title should be a heading 1 in your theme. Now, I want to talk about that setting that could be useful for SEO. There's this new setting up on the top left of the screen that says content structure, has a little I information circle. If I click on it, I'm going to be able to see quite a few things about this page that we're creating. I can see it's 723 words, there are 4 headings, 21 different paragraphs, and 31 different blocks. I can also see an outline of the document, starting with the title and working on all those headings that fall below. Now, the structure of your site should flow semantically. It should have meaning based on where you place content. By that I mean a good theme is going to separate out different posts in article tags in HTML, and they're going to separate out the title into the header, any metadata into the footer, and then all the content in the body. Now, if you're just designing your own site, this is not something that you should have to worry about. Just try to be sure that your theme is doing this. Any well-produced theme, certainly any theme from any of the big theme paid companies, are going to follow those structures. And that's useful for getting your site indexed properly, and that's useful for helping you in your rankings, because sites that are well structured are going to be ranked higher. So I just want to show you an example. I'm going to take this first heading here, and I'm going to make it a heading 4. And now I'm going to look at that info again. And again, we have this little notification that shows up. It tells me it's an H4. It pops it over to the right some, and it tells me that there's an incorrect heading level. So it would be nice, and I made a suggestion to the Gutenberg team to have more information here about what this means. But if you are familiar with the concept now, you'll know that what they mean is that you need to be, basically if you're like creating a list and then you tab over twice instead of once and you see that it looks off, this looks off. So I'm going to change it back to heading 2, take a look again, and everything is good. Now when you're editing images, you can do quite a few things with them. You see Captions also have some styling ability now, and you can see what they look like right here as opposed to using an image shortcode. And it's also going to flow where it would in the document. You can set your alternative text. This text is what you would put for someone who is using a screen reader or for descriptive capabilities. So it's not a place to put keywords or anything, but it's a place to describe what the image is. You can manually control the width of the image, or you can set a specific width, you can set a percentage of the original size. If your theme or if the image itself has multiple image sizes, so if you're familiar with how themes currently set a thumbnail, a medium large, and a large size, there'll be a drop down over here with the dimensions where you can select one of them that you want to use. And again, you have the same ability to wrap content. So let's say I make this even smaller. I mean, it's still, here I can make a little more. You can see what it'll look like if this whole box is moved over as opposed to being centered above it. We also have the ability, now note that this content here is describing some of the things that you can do. So they're also going to talk about things like the inserter, which is this button over here. So I'm going to jump in and show you the inserter and then continue going down the document. So when I click on this inserter, I can choose blocks to add. There's a few ways that blocks are listed. Suggested blocks are the ones that right now this is showing me that the most used blocks or the default ones, but the more that you use specific blocks, the higher they show up in your suggestions. So as an example, let's say that you use Gravity Forms, the form plugin. They've created a helper plugin already to incorporate a form directly into a Gutenberg block. So you can have a Gravity Forms block, which I'll show you a bit about what you can do adding new blocks as well. So let's say I use a lot of those forms. Even though it's not one of these original ones, it's going to move up this suggested list the more and more that I use it. I can also just start searching for one. So I have, let's take a look. I want to use a gallery, or if I want to post a tweet from Twitter. And you can look at blocks based on the types of blocks that they are. Common ones, different ones that control format, ones that control the layout, and ones that control widgets. So you can also, if somebody creates a plugin that has a Gutenberg block, they can put it into one of these. There's also a section for all the embeds. These are all embeds that already work in WordPress, like being able to move things directly from Imgur or post a Meetup event. But now you can do this directly as a block. And then shared, we're going to take a look at that in a moment. So I'm going to keep going down here. We see that we have a list. You can do a few things with the list. You can change obviously whether it's ordered, unordered, move it around, things like that. But now I'm going to show you a cool feature, which is changing a block type. So I'm probably not going to be able to change this and change it back very well. But let's take a look. You notice that a few different block types. I'm going to look at the paragraph. Paragraph I can change into quite a few different things, and list I can change a few things, but fewer of them. So I'm going to try this paragraph. I'm going to say I want to turn it into a list now. And you'll see that it's changed the type. It's only one item right now, as opposed to, say, me taking this and moving it to paragraph, and it moves each one of those list items into its own paragraph. But it's great that you can make those changes. Also, you saw I just went back. There are undo and redo. So if you make a mistake, that's okay. You can have these visual separators. These are just things that will let you choose, to make a horizontal rule, a block in your document. So I decided that I'm going to use the separator to, make a little bit of visual change here. And you can have a few settings, but these things are mainly controlled by your theme itself. You can set quotes. The editor Gutenberg comes with two different quote types. And the nice thing about these quotes are that they include the site. So you will have semantically correct quotes. So the author of the quote can be put, and it's going to be styled differently. You can have your theme styles. But we can take a look. And with just a click, I can make it to a different style of quote or move it back. So again, I can really design my pages without having to do quite as much work as I did before. I'm moving things around as if I'm editing a Word document. Speaking of moving things around, you'll notice that these two little arrows, move up and move down, are on the left side. I can just click one of those and move the position of this block. Drag and drop is coming, but right now you move things around using these arrows. The intent in the future will be, of course, you can just pick one up and drag it wherever you want. You can also have better control over galleries. So instead of being a specific image, this is a gallery. And you see when I clicked on it, it showed me all the different images that appear, have the ability to upload new images, and gives me some information about them. So this gallery here, since it has 3 images, I have the ability to set it from 1 or 2 columns, 1 to 3 columns. If I had more images, I could control the number of columns that appear. I can choose whether to crop the images or use the original size. So you'll note that when I click it, this one here, since it was a bit wider than tall, now it changes. I can control where it's linked to. And I can do a few other things with this. I can get rid of individual images. I can write captions on them. I can add new images to it. And then kind of get to see my gallery, what it'll look like on the front end. So it's really great to be able to design your pages around different higher resolution photos that you can now have take up more space, even if it's just having a little gallery with 2 side by side, but that show up wide so they can set that content off a bit. You can also, again, you can embed videos and embed other things directly into Gutenberg Editor. And the nice thing here, as you can see what I'm doing right now, is you can play those videos directly in the back end. So no longer do I have to just, grab a link and make sure I have the right video. I can make sure that it works right here when I'm working on it. And again, here's a different idea of what one of these different quotes can look like. And here's a smaller paragraph. And then this one is a button. And the reason that there's those little edges there is that the button's rounded, but it's let me know what the default color is, that red, but I have this black background color now. And I can link wherever that button is going to go. So again, without having to use any special styles or any other plugins, you can now just say, I want to add a button to my content, and here's where that button should go. And of course, emoji, because we always need to have emoji. So this is great. There's a lot of features here. I'm going to show you a few other things you can do. But first, let's publish this post. See, when I click publish, it's going to ask me, are you sure? Here's the info about how it's going to be public or not and when it's published. I'm going to click publish, and now I can see it. So let's take a look at our post. All right, so here's our title. This is some info that's specific to that theme, the metadata, but you see there's our fixed background with our "this is cool" text over it. It's wide. We have our block here with the drop cap, the blue background, and the white text. All of our content below. Different quote types. There's our normal width gallery. There's our full width image. And there's our wide width gallery. And then there's that video that we added. And here's our button that goes directly to the Gutenberg page on GitHub. And then, again, there's the rest of our posts. So you see that the thing that's edited, all this other stuff here from categories down, this is all part of the normal theme. The footer, the comment area, the author setting, the heading up top with the links and everything. It's only the area where the content is that's being edited. And if I go back to edit this content now, and I click that I want this to be wide instead of full, click update, takes a moment and it saves the page. And then I can take a look and see that that update has taken on the front end of the site. And now that instead of being a full width image, we have a wide image here. But again, it still has the same text, same opacity in the background, and same fixed. So let's take a look at a few other features that are in there before we move on. We talked about the ability to do contrast. We talked about the info for the block heading. You notice that it'll change if we make other changes, like I got rid of one of the paragraphs there. We also have a few other things that we can do. You can share blocks, and you can also, I showed you how to convert blocks. Now let's talk about sharing a block. So let's say this right here, this paragraph that I'm editing, let's say this paragraph is an FTC notice that you're going to put at the bottom of your blog post. Something that says like, hey, I may use affiliated links here, and if you click on them, I'm letting you know, because by law, if you share things that you're getting affiliate commission from, you need to have that posted somewhere on your site. So let's say I was doing that, and I want to add this to all of my posts. Or be able to add it where I want in my posts. Or let's say this is an email newsletter sign up, and I might want to have it below the second paragraph in one post and the 8th paragraph in another post, or twice on a post. So you can do that with Gutenberg with something called shared blocks. So you notice when I hover over it, I have the ability to delete a block, and I also have the ability to have some more options. So when I click more options, one of the things that I can do besides, there's a few things I can do. I can get rid of the block settings on the right. I can edit this as HTML, so I can go edit directly how it looks. In fact, I want to show you that really quick just to point out that, again, it's going to look at your text editor for WordPress. So I'm going to go back to editing visually. I can duplicate that block, so I can make another one right below it, but I don't want that now, so let's delete it. I can also convert this to a shared block. So I'm going to click Convert to Shared Block, and then below that I have a name that I can give it, and I'm going to say blue background paragraph, and I'm going to save. So let's go and add another post. So I'm going to click Add New Post. Now when I start adding new blocks, when I start to add a new block here, I can go over to Shared, and I can see that my blue background paragraph is here. You'll also notice that you can see a preview of what that shared block looks like. So if I click it, there we go. Now, when I click on this shared block, you'll notice that there's a new feature that comes up, delete shared block, but also convert to regular block. So why does convert to regular block exist? Well, let's assume, here's a good reason to use shared block. Let's assume that you have that email newsletter sign up or this important paragraph with important site info, and you decide that you need to change it. This right here is a notice for an event coming up, say, and you told everybody that it was going to be on Saturday, but it's actually on Sunday. That's okay. You can go in here, and I'm going to edit this block. And once convert to regular block, edit. I'm just going to get rid of, I don't know, a couple paragraphs or something, and convert to shared block. And you see that I have a new block here that I can now do something new with on all of my old posts. Okay, so we've covered shared blocks and converting blocks. You can also search for those blocks. So again, I can look for my blue paragraph background. Now I want to show you very quickly the way that a developer can use a block. So it can create their own blocks. So the nice thing about Gutenberg is that it's set up in a way that people can add new things to it. They can extend it. So as an example, I'm going to use a block that is from a Gutenberg block building demo. It's a course, which I'm going to show you the course at the end to teach you how to build your own block. And one of the things that it had you build was an editable notice. So this looks like a little post-it note on the site, and I'm going to say like, this is important. And there we go. It's just a regular editable thing. I treat it like a paragraph in this case. I'm going to update my post, take a look. And there we go. And it looks just like it looked on the back end. Now, if I decide that I no longer want to use the plugin that block was created in, I might have an issue, right? Like if you've ever used a plugin that uses shortcodes and then you got rid of the plugin and now you have all these shortcodes left on your site. If you're not familiar, shortcodes are those little straight braces, with content in the middle to make galleries display or videos or something. Now you're not going to have that same issue with Gutenberg. By the way, you can still use shortcodes if they already exist. Now it's just going to give you a place to put all your shortcode info. So if you use something that already has them, that's okay. So this right here was created with this Gutendev plugin. So I'm going to deactivate this plugin, and I'm going to note that what this thing did was it created a block that has the feature of a paragraph, but it also makes a new block that it called Editable Notice, and it gave you this yellow background. So I'm going to refresh this page now that I've disabled that plugin, and I'm going to take a look. Okay, it's taking a little bit longer to reload than I expected. Of course, while I'm demoing, it wants to be shy. There we go. And you'll see that it has turned this into what it calls a classic block. And that paragraph text is still there. So there's still my content. It hasn't been lost. I'm going to go refresh the front end of the site too. Again, that plugin is disabled. And when I refresh the front end, not sure why it's being slow suddenly. But let's see, this page is moving along. I'll close that one. Sorry about that. Live demos. So refreshing this page, and you'll see that again the text is still there, but it no longer has that fancy background. But the important thing is I did not lose any of the text. I didn't lose anything that I put in that block. So that's great. I'm not going to lose any of my content because I disable a plugin or it no longer works or it's no longer supported or whatever. Now, some of the cool things that you can do with Gutenberg when you are editing a post, I'm going to add a new post. Whoops. Sorry, not a new plugin. I'm going to go to posts. I'm going to click add new, but I'm going to go to the classic editor. And the first thing I'm going to do, first of all, is I have this document here that was created to show support of Word document files in Calibre, an ebook reader. So I'm going to copy that content. Now I'm worried that this will take a while. I'm going to paste it in here. And see what this looks like. It's a long document, so there we go. Okay, I'm going to click, let me add a title. Publish this. I feel like maybe it's so many programs active. I suppose while you're doing a live recording, I probably shouldn't have copied all of that. Oh well. For the moment, I'm going to close Word. Sure. Okay. Wow, apparently recording my video and using Word is too difficult for my computer. So I apologize for probably waiting on the delay. Again, the main thing I want to make sure that you have a takeaway of here is that you can design your own pages without having to use other plugins, without having to use page builders, and also seeing what they look like on the back end of the site as well as the front. So let's take a look at our, first we'll take a look at our classic editor post. And you see that there's some of it came through, but not necessarily a lot of the things came through that are on the original. Honestly, more than I expected. That's good. To clarify, I know that images aren't going to pull from this yet, but we have a few of our things here, and they look all right. So let's say that we want to go, let's go look at all of our posts again, and we want to edit this post that we just created as Gutenberg. I'm going to do two things here. First of all, I'm going to start adding a new post so I can have that open another window, and I'm going to take a look at this post here without clicking Classic Editor. So I'm going to click on it, and that means that by default I want to open it as a Gutenberg post. My goodness. Okay, I'm going to skip showing that other new post there so I can get this one to load. The two things that I want to demonstrate, and I'm just going to demonstrate one now, is one, I have original posts that I created without Gutenberg. So again, if you install Gutenberg on your site now and you already have posts, they're going to look like this. They're going to show you that it's one classic block. And you can leave it just like it is and everything will work fine. But you can also, if you have a classic block, you can convert to blocks, which means turn these into Gutenberg editing things. So this is probably going to take a moment, but I'm going to click convert to blocks. And normally this is very quick. Okay, good, that was quick. And you see that it broke it down into the individual headings and paragraphs and tables and lists. And then the other thing that I was going to point out was if I decide to take all that content and paste it in directly. So I just hit Command V to paste it in. It's probably going to take a moment, but you can see that it will paste in whatever content I had in my clipboard, including that file from Word. It will paste it in directly as Gutenberg blocks. And you'll also notice that these ones look a bit different because they're able, Gutenberg does a few different things with them. So I don't want to take too long on this. I realize I'm running a little bit longer on the demo than I meant to. So I just want to go over a few notes. And of course, if you want to take a look at this demo, one, I'll show you a place you can do it, and we can discuss it at a future time. So first of all, what plugins are compatible with Gutenberg? Answer is pretty much any plugin that doesn't interact with the WordPress editor. So anything that doesn't interact with your content editing block. That includes your site maintenance plugins like backups, security, updates, includes any plugins that affect widgets only. And it includes plugins like your SEO plugins, broken link plugins, pretty much anything that does something that doesn't directly affect the content itself. Now, some of those other plugins are already working on Gutenberg support, and there's a website with the link below that has some plugin compatibility. And again, you'll be able to see this later. So Gutenberg is coming with WordPress 5.0. We do not have a release date for that. It is coming sometime in the next few months, but no date has been set because they want to make sure that it works as well as possible before making it available to the public, before to the general, not trying it out on their own. If you want to try it out, go to wordpress.org/plugins/Gutenberg. And if you are worried about Gutenberg affecting your site, which there is every possibility that it could if you have something very custom going, or if you're already using a page builder that doesn't start supporting Gutenberg, there's a plugin called Classic Editor. You can install that plugin right now, and it's going to do absolutely nothing. But what it is going to do is when WordPress 5.0 comes out and Gutenberg is part of Core, it's going to ignore it and just show you the Classic Editor. So even after this becomes part of WordPress Core, you can continue using WordPress the exact same way you're doing now. I might suggest you do that if you find out that your site doesn't update well with Gutenberg, but I would highly suggest not trying to use that for a long time. It's not going to get supported forever, and eventually all of the features that you want are going to move to Gutenberg. As an example, Yoast SEO now has some features that are going to be Gutenberg specific just because of how they work. The WordPress editor hasn't really had a major update in over 12 years. This is the largest change in WordPress history, and it's going to be the future of WordPress, but it's okay if you don't want to immediately jump right in. So very quickly, I want to show you that you can enable Gutenberg in themes if they aren't already by adding some theme support. So here I have an example of some code that shows that I turned white images on and I added a color array. And on the right, you see some CSS I put just to show you that there's two new classes of CSS available, align wide and align full. I don't have time to show you some of the things that themes can do with Gutenberg right now, but if you want a demo later, I can show you, or go look online and see how to add Gutenberg to themes. They can do a lot more than just adding those wide images and colors. Now, if you want to learn more about this, there's a website called testgutenberg.com. We'll take a look at it in a moment. That's really cool because it's just the Gutenberg editor that I showed you, but it's on the front end of the site. That means that you can just go to that website, start editing content like that demo content that I had without logging in or doing anything else. There is a website called gutenberg.news, which has it's an aggregator of posts and info about Gutenberg. There is a website called gutenberg.courses. Somebody who used to be local to Orlando, Zach Gordon, used to be of Treehouse, developed these courses for building Gutenberg plugins. So if you have any interest in developing or designing your own plugins, I would highly suggest that. The theme that I created, it's called Malik. You can find it at this URL, obm.io/Malik. And of course, if you have further questions about any of this, you can find us at our WordPress meetup, meetup.wporlando.org. So that's it for my presentation, but I just want to show you that Test Gutenberg page really quick, just so you can see how cool this is. Again, you just go to the site and you can start doing it. You can start editing things just like you would if it were on your own site, but now you can play with it without even having to install it yourself. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for allowing me to go a bit over time. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to follow up. Have a good day.